Obviously, there's other good teams. So the fact that Milan's not there yet, when you consider everything that they lost, players, coaches, GMs, everything that they lost, all the change that's happening around the club, I'm not so surprised that they are where they are. I'm not so surprised that they can't find rhythm. I'm not so surprised that there's not an identity yet.
And this is what it does for them in terms of the table. They're in 7th place. As you can see, they're 5 points off Lazio, who sit in 4th place. Napoli, they've got a 2-point cushion over Inter, who are going to play tomorrow against Juventus. Inter in the Derby d'Italia, and Atalanta, they are in 3rd place. So obviously Napoli and Atalanta dropping points today, but it feels like Milan's the big talking point coming in off the game that we've just seen. How do we feel about Milan at this point? Is the glass half full with them getting the win, them getting the shutout, or is it kind of half empty, the fact that we had to watch lackluster football for a large majority of that match?
I'll say half full, just to be optimistic about the new signings and the fact that they're going to need time to be able to integrate. They started the fabulous 4 up top against Feyenoord, and it didn't really work, but you could see the quality. You could see what they bring to the table. And I think as the season gets into its latter stages, and if they could go on into the Champions League, this is a team that you wouldn't want to play against simply for the quality. They don't always show it, and that frustrates us. But I really hope Conceição can find the right strings to pull on these players and get them playing really good football. So I'll stay optimistic.
The way that Milan played against Real Madrid is what you need to watch. Also, the way that they played against Inter in the Super Cup. They have these games where the opposition's high and Milan are the underdogs, and it feels like that's where the players want to live. When they're playing against these small provincial sides that bunker up, they haven't looked good all season long. They've actually struggled and lost so many points. The reason why they're nowhere near the Champions League is because they've dropped so many points against teams that are fighting just to stay in Serie A. So you almost wish they could play one of these teams that they respect, and not almost like when they look down on the team, they play down to the level. Maybe they don't give it their all.
Is that a worry for Feyenoord? Because will they feel the underdogs even though they're down by a goal in the Champions League?
I think Milan learned their lesson. You go to that stadium there with those fans against this hungry, young Feyenoord team that just lost their best player, one of their best players, and Santi Giménez.
He's on the other
manager.
team.
They got the youth coach to come in with this big beard, looked like he just came from Game of Thrones. And suddenly they're putting in that performance, and their 2 best players were better than any other player for Milan, Paixão and Musa. It's not going to be easy, but I expect the personality for Milan that we have seen in games that really matter for them.
You look in world football, we look at the Manchester Uniteds of the world, the Tottenhams of the world, the Juventuses of the world, all these teams that are doing new projects or making changes or trying to reach new goals. It's not easy. We forget. We think, okay, Milan, it's history. Boom, should be in the top 2 or 3 all the time. We forget Antonio Conte with Napoli. What he's doing is fantastic. Atalanta, they won the Europa League last season. They have a lot of quality. So obviously, there's other good teams. So the fact that Milan's not there yet, when you consider everything that they lost, players, coaches, GMs, everything that they lost, all the change that's happening around the club, I'm not so surprised that they are where they are. I'm not so surprised that they can't find rhythm. I'm not so surprised that there's not an identity yet. Like Mateo said earlier, it's gonna take time. These things take time. They tried to make it work under Fonseca, had to go in a different way with Conceição, but also it's going to take time.
They're not as bad as those teams that you mentioned, though, as Tottenham and Manchester United. Milan's playing in the Champions League. They're close to a Champions League spot, so it's a different level. Same thing with Juventus. Juventus season, it feels very negative, but they're right there to get into Champions League.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying?
That because of the history, they're not always there.
Manchester United, though, you'd say, Grell?
What's that?
They're not as bad as Tottenham and Manchester United.
No, but Man United, right?
Prestige.
Man United has been changing things forever to be in the top 4. Still, if you speak to a Man United fan, they say, "Oh yeah, we're a top 4 team."
Yeah.
But only in their head. And a little bit, the reality of Milan is you get rid of Pioli, you got rid of Tonali, you got rid of Paolo Maldini. Why do you expect that you're going to be in the top 4 automatically?
Talent-wise,
you're changing a lot.
Forget history.
You're changing a lot.
They finished second place last year, though, too.
Talent-wise,
they finished second place. They won a Scudetto 3 years ago.
When you change a coach, you don't know what you're going to get.
History of those teams.
But this winter window has been impressive, hasn't it? It felt a disappointment because in the game against Feyenoord, we saw it was a little disjointed. Leao was looking at João Felix saying, "Pass the ball to my feet." But the good news is Santiago Giménez got 2 goals in 2 games so far, Mateo.
I'm impressed with this guy's movement. So I went back and watched all of his goals. He's someone that he reminds me a little bit of like Matteo Retegui, that he's not someone that's going to create so many chances for himself. Marco made the comparison, but it's true. And absolutely, he's a poacher, maybe even like a Mauro Icardi. He's lethal inside the box. He's very good in the air. He can score with either foot. But the thing that you notice coming from Morata and Abraham, Morata was basically playing as a midfielder, was never in a forward position to receive the ball. Giménez always feels like he's making the right runs. He just needs to serve service to come in a little bit more, because when he does have a playable ball, he's in the right moment, and he does look like a really a guy who makes the most of his opportunities when they arise, which is exactly what Milan didn't have. They had the most wasteful strikers in Serie A, especially Tammy Abraham, whose XG is always like 3 times higher than what he's actually putting in.
Just needs the players around him. He needs the guys around him to be creative, to beat their man, to put him in that position. Because like we said, that goal, you pointed out right, it seems easy. It seems like, okay, wow, look, empty header and no goalkeeper. But to be there and to understand the movements, that's a skill in itself. Inzaghi says it all the time, right? He said, I was not the most technical player of all time, but reading moments, that's about football IQ. That's knowing where the ball's going to be before you get there. So
Inzaghi with VAR, would he have been a legend?
That's what Sir Alex Ferguson said. He was born offside. But I think he does have those qualities.
You know how many times they robbed him too, probably?
That's true. That's true.
Probably more the opposite way, though, to be honest.
I would say so.
Would you be a Red Bull legend if VAR had been a factor?
No. Running behind's not my thing.
Remember, the fastest goal in MLS history would never have happened if there was VAR.
Exactly.
He started 10 yards ahead, and he's always complaining.
I think that with Giménez, though, just to hit quickly on him, is that the good thing is he is lethal inside the box. The good thing is that he takes his chances really well, but he's not getting a lot. So in 2 games, he's probably wondering to himself, oh boy, I've got to be perfect or else I'm not going to get many chances at it. But I think he's had probably 3 chances. He's finished 2 of them. So there's a positive to that as well.